Okay, you don't have to listen to this at all. This is just my opinion on these type of situations, or this type of situation. You know, a lot of people now, they want to carry weapons and have weapons on them, you know, a lot of times during the day, or at different times during the day in different places, you know, and having weapons on you gives you the power to use that weapon, especially if the weapon's a firearm. But not only a firearm, other things as well. When you're having weapons on you, you have to be able to have some self-control. You have to be able to trust yourself. It's some people that got weapons on them and they don't even really trust themselves, and they don't even really realize it. You have to be able to trust yourself. That same old phrase, with great power comes great responsibility. Yeah, that's what this is. Because if you're carrying around a firearm or any kind of weapon, you have the responsibility of that weapon. And you have to know how to handle them safely. And if you don't even know the basics about firearm safety, that's a problem. You want to carry around a firearm or any weapon and you don't know the basics about the safety of it, that's a problem. You have to be able to be level-headed when you're having these weapons. You can't be an impulse person. You have to pay attention to your own habits and recognize if you are moving off impulse a lot without thinking, because that can happen with the weapon, and that's happened to a lot of people that have weapons. They get mad, pull their weapon, and use it based on impulse and not think about what they were doing before they did it. You're really supposed to think about the situation before the situation happens, if you can. But firearms or weapons and a person that moves off impulse, that doesn't mix well at all. Now, in my opinion, when it comes to relationships, men and women relationships, pulling a firearm or a weapon shouldn't be the first response to either person's mind, in my opinion. In most of these cases where I'm seeing, you know, there be some type of domestic violence and either party using a firearm on the other party, and most of the cases it wasn't worth it. Like, it wasn't worth it for anybody to get, as they say, unalived over the situation. I think some people aren't taking these firearms serious enough, because some people are able to get them so easily. And so some people are carrying them around and picking them up, using them, playing with them. Like, this is not something, you know, people are not supposed to be playing around with. It's supposed to be for a serious threat. It's not supposed to be used for a moment where your ego may feel bruised, or you may feel disrespected by your partner, or it's just supposed to be used for serious threats, serious situations in which you have to use it. Not for situations for where you want to use it, or you impulsively grab it and use it. Because, okay, think about all the stories of road rage and road rage drivers. Oh, he cut me off, she cut me off, so they got mad, and then somebody ends up shooting the other person. That's what I mean when I say impulse. That anger between the two people drove a person to pull their weapon, utilize it on impulse. The impulse of anger in that moment. Now, originally, there wasn't a threat. Now, someone felt disrespected, maybe. They got cut off or something happened in traffic, so somebody felt disrespected, but there was no threat. So that means it could have been dissolved. The only time the threat happened is when they made themselves a threat based on their anger, so they pulled their weapon on impulse. And like I say, most of the time, I really want to say all of the time, it wasn't worth it. Somebody cutting you off in traffic or doing something to make you mad in traffic is really not worth pulling your weapon on anyone over, and let alone using it. But because it's happened we've heard about it happening so much already. Now there's just gonna be some people, when something happens in traffic, some people are just gonna go to their weapon. Now they may not use it, but some people are at least going to make sure it's there with them because of so many past news stories. And now I also think there are more types of women carrying firearms. And I think they also, the same as men, have to make sure they're in a healthy mental space in order to be using one. There were always women using firearms, but most of the women, it seemed like in the past that were having firearms, they really dived into learning about firearms, and they learned the safety, and they learned how to use them and know when to use them. But now it's some women that are getting firearms who aren't familiar with that field really, and some of them are just getting them for the first time without having much guidance, especially some like single mothers. Some single mothers may, have just gotten their first firearm and not know much about it, but got it because they need protection and they need to protect themselves. And some of the first steps to protecting yourself is first, making sure that you're in a healthy mental state. And this goes for men and women, making sure you're in a healthy mental state to have a firearm. And you have to think situational. You have to think about and study times when you should and shouldn't use it. You want to know when and when not to use it. And then where to store it, how to safely handle it, where to point it, how to grip it so that it's safe when you're holding it. Different things like that. There's just been a lot of stories that have been shown that I personally have seen that could have been avoided easily. And yes, sometimes it's easier said than done. Sometimes it's hard to hold how you feel back. It's hard to hold your anger back with you. Sometimes you just gotta do it and realize, and you have to think. You have to think before you use a weapon.